What's the history of comics? Well, it's the story of how a picture's worth 1,000 words, but sometimes one panel is all it takes to change everything. Hey there, welcome to my channel. Today, we are going to go over the history of comics, so get ready to get creative. Alright, let's get started. Chapter 1, Newspaper Strip Beginnings. It all starts here, the Sunday Fun. In the 1890s, newspapers began adding comics to their weekend editions to entice buyers, and lucky for us, they became an instant hit. Kids and adults alike loved to pick up their papers and find a new cartoon or comic strip inside. Some of the biggest names included the Yellow Kid, Crazy Cotton Mutt, and Jeff. These lighthearted strips were drawn in black and white and relied heavily on word balloons to tell their jokes and stories. Readers had to learn how to follow the panels and read from left to right, top to bottom, which was a revolutionary concept at the time. But once they did, it opened up a whole new world of entertainment. And that brings us to our first ever comic book, a reprint collection called Famous Funnies. In 1934, Eastern Color Printing put those newspaper strips into pocket-sized booklets that you could buy for a dime. Bam! The comic book was born. Chapter 2, The Golden Age. Now, the 1930s saw the Great Depression and then World War II. And suddenly these superheroes appeared, soaring through the skies, fighting for truth and justice, giving kids hopeful icons to cheer for. Action Comics #1, in 1938, introduced Superman, but he wasn't alone for long. Batman came along in Detective Comics #27. Wonder Woman flew into action in All-Star Comics #8, and Captain America punched his way onto the scene in Captain America Comics #1. What a time to be alive, right? These characters didn't just appear in comic books. They became larger than life, showing up on movie theater posters and even in USO kits sent to soldiers far from home. They helped boost morale and gave folks a reason to keep going. Talk about patriotic punch. Chapter 3, Storm Clouds and the Comics Code. As comics grew in popularity, some folks started to worry. Mystery and adventure comics were getting pretty intense. Horror and crime stories seemed a bit too dark. Parents and lawmakers thought that maybe they were giving youngsters a little too much excitement. The Comics Magazine Association of America stepped in to help publishers clean up their act. And in 1954, they introduced the Comics Code Authority Seal. It was like a good housekeeping stamp of approval. Publishers who signed on promised that their stories would be safe, positive, and respectful. And guess what? Most comic book companies agreed to follow the guideline. This led to a bit of a slump in creativity. But hey, it could have been worse. At least comics were still around. Chapter 4, The Silver Age Spark. Things started to look up when DC Comics decided to give The Flash a science makeover. Writer Robert Kanier and artist Carmine Infantino made the Flash zoom into the modern age with rocket ships and ray guns. Soon after, Marvel Comics entered the scene with a bang. In 1961, they unleashed Fantastic Four, a superhero team with everyday problems and lots of humor. It was a game changer. Suddenly, kids saw themselves as superheroes too, and it didn't stop there. Marvel went on to create amazing characters like Spider-Man, the X-Men, and the Hulk. They tackled tough subjects like bullying, prejudice, and social issues, making sure young readers knew they weren't alone. Silver Age comics were all about fun, adventure, and being relatable. It was a time when heroes became friends and sidekicks became family. Chapter 5, Bronze Age and New Voices. Now things got serious. During the Bronze Age, comics tackled bigger, more meaningful themes. Steve Ditko's Mr. A and Steve Nonis, The Question, explored philosophical questions. Marv Wolfman and Len Wein brought horror back in a cool way with the new Teen Titans. Meanwhile, Donnie McGregor's Luke Cage, Power Man focused on real-world struggles. And it wasn't just about saving the day. Comics showed kids dealing with friendship, loss, and even growing up. Artists experimented with brighter colors and splash pages, making every panel pop with energy. Plus, something exciting happened. Comic book shops popped up everywhere. Forget waiting until Saturday to get your hands on the latest issue. The new direct market meant small publishers could share their unique ideas without worrying about every corner newsstand. By the early 80s, comics were a thriving industry, full of new voices and bold stories. Chapter 6, Modern Age and Graphic Novels. Let's talk about storytelling. In the late 80s, Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns changed everything. Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons took us on a mind-bending journey with Watchmen, where superheroes question their purpose and fight for a better world. Comics weren't just for kids anymore. Art Spiegelman's Maus combined history and memoir in a graphic novel. That's right, Maus, a Pulitzer Prize winner. Will Eisner's A Contract with God brought biblical tales into the modern age. Jeff Smith's Bone series proved that adventure and humor could thrive in black and white. From realistic drama to witty commentary, comics had grown up. But don't worry, they still had plenty of laughs. Cartoonists like Gary Larson Bill Watterson and Charles M. Schultz continued to tickle funny bones with Far Side, Calvin and Hobbes, and Peanuts. And as the 90s and early 2000s rolled on, comics found a new home in libraries. No longer were they seen as just comic books. Nope, graphic novels stood proudly alongside classics like To Kill a Mockingbird. Comics had come a long way, but they were about to explode. Chapter 7. Digital and Multimedia. Boom. Oh boy, it's the 21st century and the internet is everywhere. Comic creators took full advantage. They launched their own webcomics, reaching readers all over the world with a single click. Some popular webcomics included Hyperbole and a Half, Questionable Content, and Dinosaur Comics. Readers could connect with creators directly and support their work. It was a win-win situation. But wait, there's more. In 2008, Iron Man soared onto the big screen, kicking off a string of blockbuster movies. Suddenly, comic book stores became the place to be. Young fans rushed to pick up the latest issue of Amazing Spider-Man or All New X-Men. It was like a treasure hunt. They wanted to see themselves on the big screen. But not just any heroes. There was a growing demand for representation and diversity. Enter Miles Morales, the new Spider-Man, a teenager juggling school, family, and superpowers. And then there's Kamala Khan, aka Ms. Marvel, a Muslim superhero who balances her love for comics with her faith and cultural identity. These characters showed young readers that they, too, could be heroes, no matter who they are. Chapter 8, 2020s and Tomorrow. Oh, the future of comics is looking bright. Let's talk about the digital revolution. With apps and subscriptions, kids can read their favorite comics on tablets while snuggled up on the couch, sipping cocoa. It's never been more convenient. Plus, creators keep in touch with readers through newsletters, sharing sneak peeks and behind-the-scenes fun. But wait, there's more. Artists are diving into artificial intelligence, experimenting with new tools and techniques to enhance their craft. And some are even offering sneak peeks in virtual reality. Who knows what tomorrow will bring? Maybe one day you'll be creating your own comics, exploring worlds beyond imagination. The possibilities are endless. Mix and match these 8 chapters to create your very own time-traveling adventure through the history of comics. Remember, you can start anywhere and end up anywhere. It's your story to tell. So how's your comic book journey going? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We can't wait to hear your story. And if you're still thirsty for knowledge, dive into our other videos. And hey, don't forget to subscribe.